Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Well, you put a mask over him or some shit. All right, so we're on?
Yep.
Okay, guys, what's going on? We're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guests are Brad Lewis, Cody Ritchey, and Tom Smith. They're in town for the V.I.P crew training retreat, where you're a member of the V.I.P crew, which is the extra podcast per month, the Discord server with the form. We can talk about all the different things that are on there because you guys can tell me what you appreciate about it more than I can say what's in it. But also, if you're a crew member, it makes you eligible to sign up for training retreats, which we're going to have probably 3 or 4 times per year. That is this weekend, where it's just basically training, bullshitting, and barbecue. So, I appreciate you guys for being crew members, and I appreciate you guys coming out for this. Real quick, can you introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of just go from there.
Brad Lewis, lifetime fireman, dad, and general strength enthusiast.
Cody Ritchey, been training since I was 17. I'm 32 now. Me and some buddies have a powerlifting team in South Georgia, and in the process of buying the SPF.
And I'm Tom Smith. I've also been lifting since I was 17. I'm turning 34 next month. I'm a high school principal. I live out in Denver, and I've been competing for that entire time.
Okay, cool. Where I want to jump off with this on is when the reason why you guys got here is because we put the post out on the Discord server saying the first 3 people that would sign up, we can do the podcast with, and just to bring in and bullshit and talk and stuff like that. So you were the first 3 guys to be able to jump on that. So that's kind of why you're here. So it wasn't like we went through and vetted, you were actually the first 3 people, which is kind of awesome with that. Quickly with the Discord crew, because I don't want to make this like a fucking hour commercial on the Discord fucking server and the Crewcast podcast and stuff like that. From your own perspectives, what do you find the most value in that? And we can go in any fucking order. It doesn't matter to me.
So I think that for me, I train alone for the most part. Occasionally I got one of my buddies will come in and spot me on a heavy day or whatever, but the serious benefit I see from it is being able to communicate with other people like you guys would have had back in the day. You got all these eyes on your lift, 10 guys looking at you or however many it is, telling you everything you're doing wrong. Hey, have you tried this? Hey, have you tried that? And you've talked about this a bunch. We don't really have that he's lifting in his garage, I'm lifting at work. But now I can post videos, and not only do all these guys see it, we also have coaches from around the world looking at it. Seth is in Canada looking at it. Tom's in the UK looking at it. And it's fast, man. Like, people have posted videos of a set, and between sets, someone is reviewing what's going on. So you can make like real-time changes. And beyond the immediate stuff for strength training, it's like somebody reached out to me. They've got a family member that's got some disability. Hey, how can I train so that I can better lift this person when they fall at home? Well, that's right where the intersectionality of my skill set is, lifting weights and helping people. And then I can help them program a little bit so that they're better at picking up that person that they have to help at their house. Like, it's just whatever you need, there's somebody on there that's an expert in it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's the different perspectives of everybody from different areas of the country too. So you're not just getting the same shit that you would get around your area. So it's everybody, the professionals, the form checks, the training Q&A, and then all the ebooks that we have access to. That's in the price. So the value is way more than what we're paying for it.
Yeah, I agree too, especially on the value point. I mean, if we stopped the channel today, there'd still be an infinite amount of stuff there to go through. But I really appreciate the form checks, the training Q&A, just like you guys are talking about. People are really quick on it. I really like that a lot of the elite content has been libraried there and really well organized and easy to access. So you can go back through, you can look at the ebooks, you can look at seminars, you can look at series. If you're guys like us who have grew up alongside Elite FTS and it's been there the whole time, you can really appreciate going back and seeing some of those old videos too, which I really enjoy. But I think the other one that sticks out for me that's a little bit different is the What You Reading section. We've had a lot of really good books there, or other resources that have been shared. But overall, a lot of different perspectives from people around the country, like you're saying, but it's just such a positive community. The feedback's good. It's not so positive that it's corny. You know, people are still busting balls a little bit, but it's very productive. I've never seen another online community of lifters have so much mutual respect and a positive direction, solutions-oriented direction to the conversations they're having.
The thing with that I didn't expect was because I have a Train Your Ass Off server, which, you know, Brad's a part of, which is kind of that's how I knew I wanted to go with a Discord instead of like a Patreon or something like that, because I kind of already knew it. And we already had the form checks and stuff like that were happening in the Train Your Ass Off things. And they were fast, and after there might be, actually, I don't even think they use it anymore because they're all members of the Table Talk crew as well. So it's kind of migrated all over there. But somebody would post a lift up, and this would be after maybe there were 40 people that were in the Train Your Ass Off thing. And then by the time I would get to review it, somebody else already had. And it was very, very fucking close to what I would have said. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Like, I didn't expect this, you know. And then when the Table Talk one started, then more people came in, and then we brought in Seth, and then we brought in Tom. Then it's to a point now, by the time I fucking go look at it, it's like the lift has been reviewed by 15 fucking people, and any part has already been analyzed. And like, yep. You know, that I did not expect that. You know, I thought every night I'm going to have to sit there and kind of like break down all these lifts. And I can't remember the last time I fucking even broke down a lift. I'm just looking at it. It's already been said. That was the first thing that I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. The other thing is the community aspect of it, which I didn't expect that either. I thought, you know what, this is just going to be this thing, right, where they're going to get the extra podcast, which is going to go out once a month, which will be the Q&A type of thing. I don't think people give a fuck about that, to be honest. They care more about the community aspect than what that is. And then all of a sudden that became this whole organic thing that's just happening, where you go into like the training Q&A and it's like, oh my, what just happened here? You know, because here's the answer, then here's like 4 subtopics and all those answers there, where I didn't expect that either. Because now the things that I thought were going to be the biggest value, the extra ebooks and all the other kind of shit that's on there, they are just at this point the extra value. I thought that was going to be the main value, because that's how I was promoting it at first. I was like, here, this is, you know, $15 or $19. I think it's like $20 a month. And with that, you get XXX, like $900 worth of free ebooks and all that promotional bullshit we've all grown up with all that 36 ebooks and all this other stuff. And that pales in comparison to people that will have the training questions and questions outside of the training that happen through that. I didn't expect that. I did not expect that at all. That's taken on. I don't want to say it's like a crew in a gym, because a gym crew is kind of like a different organic thing. But I will say it's the closest thing that I've seen online to that, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's like you have several coaches.
Yeah.
If you use it, then you have multiple eyes on you. And you can get, like nutrition. You can go in and ask anything about nutrition, and several people are going to chime in. Hey, this is what I did to help me, or this is what I've used for other people. So instead of just paying one coach, you have several coaches almost with different perspectives.
Yeah.
I will say that there are a couple, we'll call them friends of your podcast, that have a way that you can interact with them, get some coaching, that kind of thing. One of those is a Facebook gimmick, and one of them is a forum, and I have used both of those. I'm not super tech savvy. I think that the Discord really fits the way that I like to live my life. I'm not on Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on the internet. Shout out to Joey for making Discord work so well for us.
Yeah.
it works like my, the things that I use on my cell phone every day. So I shoot a video the same way, I take a picture the same way, I text the same way, and we put it into the Discord, and then everybody can see it. I don't have to go to an extra thing. There's not an extra step logging into a social media account or whatever like I'd have to do with some of the other ones.
That's true. It's a great place to be able to share because it's easy, right? Whether it's pictures, documents, links, and we see a ton of that, people sharing information. And again, I think it's definitely grown. I think I was in the first like 50 members or something last September is when we launched. Yeah. And I was curious to see how the tone would change as more members came in, and it's been great. I mean, I think it's a really respectable community. What I didn't expect is you start to see people's personalities coming through too, which is not always the case with some of these online communities, but you see the same people answering similar questions or offering similar advice, and you kind of get to know them a little bit. So this weekend is great to be able to catch up with some of these guys, get to meet them in person. I'm really looking forward to that.
I think at some point the tone will change, and that is something that I'm very perceptive of, to be able to see what it is, because when it does start to happen, I'm going to cease new members, just hold it and then just keep it there. And then at that point, because then we're getting outside of the market we really want for it. Right, to grow a business, you still need to get on the perimeters, to grow outside. That's just kind of part of it. But you got to be careful how that happens when you're dealing with community and stuff like that. We're not there yet. I have a feeling it will be there like within 50 more or something like that. And then the strategy I have for that is then you just stop membership, you just cease it. And then I start looking for more people like Seth and Tom and that kind of stuff to be able to have them. So when other people onboard, it goes to a different thread. And then it kind of breaks out in there. But nobody's going to pay money to be an asshole either. Right. So that eliminates. I mean, I never thought that was going to be an issue. I never thought like the trolling or assholes or anything like that was going to be an issue, because you'd have to be a super fucking asshole, to pay $20 a month and then come on there and be an asshole. And if they do, they're just going to get drilled by everybody else anyhow, which is funnier now.
Yeah. You also know for something like that, to call it self-policing, for lack of a better word, that everybody in that Discord has some kind of bashing in the holster for somebody who's going to come in and be out of hand. And I take great comfort in that too, because I think that we see people have really high character in that community giving feedback, who also aren't going to take any shit. So it's been really cool to be part of that and see it work, because it never does.
Yeah. The background story or inside story with that whole Discord thing, that wasn't part of my plan from the jump at all. It was, okay, we're going to just have this extra podcast, right? And then with the extra podcast, that's all it's going to be. That's why I was using that other service for a while, which is probably what you guys are still on, which we're going to stay on that because the reoccurring is still on there with that as well. But the caveat was, you're going to sign up and not get shit until we get 200 members. Then at that point in time, we'll start doing the extra podcast. Well, that took a while. It took longer than I thought, because everybody that knows me was like, oh, dude, you're going to have 200 members in 2 days. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. I know for a fact it does not work like that. And but then after like 4 months, I'm like, fuck, no, wait a minute. These guys are like on this reoccurring billing, or they paid for this thing. Then after 6 months, I'm like, oh, shit. Like, are we ever going to hit this 200 or 250? And then, like I said, I had the train your ass off one. So it was like my guilt. I'm like, people are like just paying to support the podcast, which is great. I mean, that's what a lot of people did from the very beginning. It had nothing to do with all this. And it's like, I got to provide some value. I can't just fucking do this and not have some value. And then that's kind of how it came about, which, looking at where it is now, how it's organically grown into something I didn't even think it was going to be. It was just going to be this extra, because what other podcasts will do is they just have that extra podcast, and that's just kind of how it goes. And then the memberships support that, or whatever it's going to be. That's not the model that this became, which is, I like this better. I like what it is now than what I thought it was going to be, right? And it certainly isn't what others thought it was going to be, because they thought I'd have like 5,000 members or some shit like that. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't work that way. Still trying to figure that whole thing out. So to get away from all that kind of shit, you said that you're in the process of buying the SPF, so I need to know about that. So tell me something.
So, I mean, it really came out of left field. Jacob bombed out at a meet. So it was 4 or 6 weeks later, he picked another meet he wanted to go, actually complete the meet this time. So we go up there, and we're really close with Jesse. We just bust his balls all the time. And every time we would go to a meet, I would try to beat him down on some of his weights. So come deadlifts, I'm trying to get some more calibrated plates out of him for cheap. So he finally just says, well, what you need to do instead of trying to buy all my equipment, just buy the SPF. And we kind of just all looked at each other and was like, are you fucking serious? Because we can work this out. And it was pretty much, he sees how passionate we are about powerlifting and the SPF. And he's getting older and just kind of getting tired of running it, traveling. So he really just wants to see somebody else take it over and put the effort that it needs and the lifters deserve into it. So we've been in that process of buying it out from them, and come the 1st of January, it'll be 100% ours.
So you went through a valuation process and all that to see what it was valued at, or
well,
just kind of?
No, because I've seen a drop off in it over the years. So it's like I was talking to Brian Carroll about. I look at it as we're starting over. There's a good foundation and we have really good people that are part of the Federation. So we have something to build off of. But as far as what it's bringing in, I know it's dumb because I own a business.
Yeah.
But I see it as we're starting this fucker over.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good foundation to build off of, and we have people that really love the SPF. But they see things that it's been lacking over the years, and talking to them about some of the stuff we want to implement, they're fully on board. So we'll be bringing in some people that we trust for kind of like a board of advisors. Brian Carroll will be part of it. Some of our other members like Andy, Amanda, the announcer. So, and it's like I tell them, this stuff's not going to happen overnight. And we need everybody's help to bring it up to what we think it should be. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but everything that we're getting from the SPF that it's bringing in will be going back into the SPF to update it.
How's the membership breakdown look as far as raw, multiply, unlimited?
It's majority raw.
So majority or more, so like anything else.
Yep. Now this past nationals, there were a good bit of geared lifters, which was good to see, because when I first started my first nationals, there was a little over 100 people. The nationals from this year, I think we were at maybe 70. And now I know you have COVID, but when you look at other federations, it doesn't seem like it really has slowed them down a whole bunch from this year. Mm-hmm. And then I go on, and even just checking social media, you can tell how far behind the SPF is as far as social media, because you can bring up followers from the SPF compared to other federations, and it's a drastic difference. Mm-hmm. So we want to push social media more, and we have things that we want to implement to kind of help us with that. So, and I mean, I'm not going to lie, this is going to be a huge learning curve for us too.
What business are you in now?
Landscaping.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's a completely different business than owning a federation. But we have people that's been around for a long time.
Business principles still carry over though.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to all these meets, helping run them, and you can just sit back and watch what needs to change.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a long road, but we're in for it. Communications with the lifters is one of the biggest things that we want to change. Not only that, how the judging is across the board, because we go to some of these meets and the judging can be pretty good across the board, or we can go to some and it's like, it's a fucking touch and go on bench press.
Yeah. And
we're giving whites for this. It's pretty fucking simple.
Oh yeah.
Everything's in the rule book. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is go by the rule book. So not trying to say anything bad about people. It's just, I feel it's kind of been neglected a little bit over the years, and we just have to earn back the trust of lifters and make them want to come lift for the SPF.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, as an outsider looking into all these federations for 3 decades, what most of them lack is just basic fucking business sense, if you want to be completely transparent. Because, you know, there's customers, they're called lifters. You know, I don't think a lot of federations really understand that the lifters are their customers.
right.
You know, there's all those things that if that's implemented correctly, and I think the rule book probably needs to be streamlined a little bit, you know, to represent what's really going on. It'll at least be more clear, you know, on that, because it shouldn't be left to interpretation, but yet it is.
Right.
A lot, you know, depending upon the federation. And it'd be interesting to see if somebody goes a little bit different, especially with the ones that also are in multiply, because you touch multiply with raw, where some of the other federations, they don't. It's like, you know, raw with sleeves, raw with wraps, whatever it is, but there's no single ply, there's no multiply. Where I think some of them might have single ply, but they really don't. You know, they say they do, but they don't. And when you start combining all those, because there's this what do I want to say? This misunderstanding by multiply lifters think that they're a greater percentage than what they really are.
Right.
Which kind of drives me fucking crazy, right? Because you can go to open powerlifting and fucking see this.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. You don't even need to know how to read an Excel database. You just need to know how to filter by the little things you can see. And it's a very small percentage, but in their world, they think it's 100%. And it's like, well, it's not, you know, so now you got to figure that whole thing out, which in that area, because that's kind of what I came up through, because it was only that. There's more bullshit in the multiply federations than you see in any of the other ones. It's crazy as fuck to me. So say there's maybe 200,000 lifters, around that. Maybe 2,000 are multiply. And then all the beef and shit that you see is in the multiply. It's like you're already the minority. And then you're dividing yourselves among stupid shit, you know, basically being little crybabies, but then all saying that it's going to come back. I'm like, how exactly is that going to happen if you fuckers can't even agree, you know, on your own? Meanwhile, they're getting their ass stomped, you know, by the 80% that just keeps growing in percent. And I think that for so long, they just get caught up in their little clique dogma or whatever it is with that, and it never moves forward, you know, it's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to all the meets we've been to this year, the geared lifters are a very small population of SPF, I know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's dominated by raw. You can have some meets you won't have any geared lifters. Others you'll have one. The most amount of geared lifters that we've seen were at nationals, and the majority of them were made up of one group. So
yeah,
it was one team, majority of them. So I will say it's not going to be easy, but with the help of the key pieces that we have around the SPF, they will definitely be a drastic help for us. And some of them know way more than we do. And I'm completely honest with them. It's like, look, we haven't been doing this our whole life. So we do need help with certain aspects. And that's one of the good things about like Brian coming in for a board of advisors, is because he's been around a long time and he's seen a lot of things, and he has his own opinions on what we can do to make it better. So he's going to be a big key piece for us and turn everything around.
Okay. How long have you been training in your home gym?
Home gym, a little bit right around COVID. And then when gyms opened up back again, I went into gyms for a while. So I've probably been back in my home gym now for about 9 months.
How do you manage it now between the two?
Still mostly in the basement. That's where I'm getting it in probably 90% of that time, but I have been popping out a little bit more into I shouldn't say community gyms, private gyms in the last month or so. But I think I'm going to try to do a little bit more of that towards the end of this year and just kind of get back out in the community a little bit. I came up in a crew. I miss aspects of that, but I really like some of the opportunities lifting at home affords me too. So there's a balance there.
Tell me about those differences, because this is the one thing that I've wondered, because throughout lockdowns, home gyms obviously, spiked. And so people that were serious about training were training someplace and they started training their home gym. Where pre-COVID, if we were setting up home gyms for people, the way that I would normally recommend somebody would do that would be, well, where are you training now? How far is the commute? How long you got to drive? Do you do like small, stupid extra workouts? Like you have a fucking arm day or, a light bench day or something like that. Then you set your home gym up for that, right? Mm-hmm. So now that provides one less trip that you have to drive 40 minutes or whatever to be able to do. And now it looks like it's flipped, right? To where now if we're giving somebody a recommendation, it's like, well, how do you train now? Then you build the home gym around how they train. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, that's where you do the majority of your training. But if you want to build one of the lifts, then you want to go someplace where you can be around people that can help you build that lift. So now you're going out on that. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to move towards a bit more too. So I started basically exactly like what you said. Right when COVID hit, I think I started with a bar, some bands, put together a couple of workouts, and then started acquiring some equipment, can do more and more. And by the time it had ended, I had enough to like mostly get through a week, but still needed to supplement with the gym. So that's how I ended up back into the gyms. I think for guys like me, or even guys, maybe if you're just working out alone in a private facility or at a firehouse or whatever it may be, the internet has afforded such an opportunity to be able to figure things out and learn and do things independently. And I've had to do that at points, throughout my lifting career, find ways to put it together. But I think resources like the Discord really make that possible for people to be able to lift alone or without a crew or be able to put things together. And that's something that I really enjoy about having my own space, is a lab for me. Kind of dick around, take my time if I need to, set things up. But a lot of that is informed by things that I've learned on the internet or learned from the Discord or from some ebooks. So I think it's a combination of things. Obviously COVID threw a lot of people back into the gyms, but the internet and, even social media to a certain degree, it affords people the ability to learn this stuff and practice it and document it and grow.
When you said guys like me, how do you define that?
I would say people who are mostly lifting alone or at a home gym. For me specifically, though, I've had some experience working in crews, working with a coach. So I do think that's really important. I think for somebody to come off the street and just try to learn things online from YouTube or even the Discord would be a little bit more difficult. But if you have the experience to contextualize what you're reading and learning, and how to listen to coaching, or how to watch coaching and coach yourself to a degree, I think it's really valuable. But you have to have that foundation, or I would suggest having that foundation of working with a coach, working in a crew, something like that first.
I would believe it's harder today to be able to find yourself part of a crew in a gym someplace.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I'm kind of going to drill down on this a little bit. Yeah. All you guys can talk about this some, right? Because when I was coming up, it was a different strategy. I had to find where they were. Actually, I was dumped into it from the start. But when I went to college, I had to find where do the best guys train? And then there's no internet, shit like that. So then I had to go there, and I'm not just walking up to them and saying, hey, look, can I work in? It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. It's like I had to train at the same time. They had to see me busting my ass, showing up, then occasionally do you need a lift offer? Then you kind of have to earn your way, right, into what it was, right? And it was a different world. And then when you actually become part of the crew, you're the fucker that's like, no, you're like, look at that dude over there. You realize that there's scouting going on, right? Where you're the person trying to be scouted, you're just trying to, but you don't realize the whole fucking time those other guys were noticing. Well, I wonder if that fucker over there, is going to show up consistently. And then they kind of bridge that. I don't think that works like that anymore.
It probably not. I mean, when I started, I was going to our community gym, getting ready for football, the way a lot of people start. There was one guy in my town who was a power lifter, and he benched. He's a police officer, and he ended up being the guy who kind of guided me through and got me introduced to powerlifting. And yeah, it was the same thing. He liked working with young guys, get them ready for football, but he needed people to spot him and put his shirt on. He's using a closed back double denim. So he's got 3 or 4 teenage kids hanging off him, trying to get ready. But
how long ago was this?
15 years ago.
Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much what everybody was doing then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I got, I got into a double
yeah.
denim when I was 16. And it's a weird way to start. But if you have to have a rite of passage, that's one fucking way to do it, you know? But I don't know if students have, or students, if athletes have that kind of exposure in the gym, or if it's easy to jump into a crew anymore. And for me, with like my work-life harmony, I guess, it's just one of those things that can really optimize a lot of my training by having a balance between the two.
Mm-hmm. How did you get in?
It was something I wanted to do for a long time, compete in powerlifting, but I was one of those that didn't think I was strong enough. Looking back on it, I'm so stupid because you don't have like a minimum.
How long were you training before that crossroad though?
Seriously, 14, 15 years.
Like bodybuilding type shit?
Yeah, kind of just bro split shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, there's a foundation though.
Yeah, there was a foundation. And I met Joey, and me and him started the team. And then from there, it kind of just snowballed. And it is what we are today, 8 members. We train 4 a.m. in the morning, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. And then Sundays, we come in, do our second upper day, call it a week. But from what we've seen is, it almost seems like people don't want to train with us. And I think part of it is the 4 a.m.
I would say that's probably a big part of it.
They just do not want to get their ass up. Or it's, oh, well, what if I come in the evenings? Well, the team doesn't train in the evenings. If you want to be part of the team, it's 4 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah.
And they kind of, they'll go to another team that's kind of closer to us, 30 minutes down the road. And I think a lot of it too is they hear the music downstairs, they hear us yelling, and we're getting after it. But the biggest thing would be the 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start missing, you're missing 1-2 days a week, we don't need you.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you providing everybody here? Because the rest of us are here.
Yeah.
And whether we need help wrapping or you spotting, you have to provide something for the team.
So we're going back like 15 years of training as well, if not longer.
Yep. And it's just, even when I wasn't in powerlifting, I always had training partners.
Yeah.
So that helped me know that, well, I've got to get to the gym because other people are waiting on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to let them down, just like they don't want to let me down. So I think the group that we have for the most part is a solid group because they do show up. And they're there anytime that we need them to go to a meet and help, whether it be a charity meet that other people are putting on or whatever. Majority of the time they are there.
Okay.
So that's all we're looking for.
Brad, when did you start training seriously?
Well, I think for me, seriously has gone in phases. So I trained as an athlete when I was a kid, football, wrestling, martial arts after that, and I trained for those things specifically, and strength was a supplement to that.
Yeah.
But then I got into the fire service, and I was using my training as a supplement for that, and that became, forgive me for the foul language, functional fitness. And then I trained at a CrossFit box for a long time. Like, I just want to squat and deadlift, and the only place around me that'll let me do that is a CrossFit gym. So I did CrossFit for a while, and I kind of stayed down that path of, I have to do 27 exercises at breakneck pace, and it took me far longer than it should have to realize if I physically structure my training, then I can get strong into things I want to get strong at and build that in a way that it helps me be good at the things I need to be good at, as opposed to trying to throw 10 things at the wall and see what sticks. Like, I can keep my cardio in check by using the prowler sled after I do my leg day. I can train my lower, I can train my upper. Now we use a very, me and my guys are about split 50-50. I do conjugate. The guys who are newer are on 5-3-1 because I think that's a great place for them to start. And I kind of build them up on other things if they have questions, like, yeah, try this, try that. But it took me far longer than it should have to realize that if you build your plan into the future, you don't have to do everything at once. Some of those what's the word I'm looking for? Like your conditioning will hold with a little bit of help, and you only really got to push it, say, in the springtime or whatever. And so now I've been, I think 8 years I've been on what I'm doing now. And then I've been competing in powerlifting for 3 years, Highland Games for 7 years, and Strongman for about 2.
All right. So the question I'm going to have for you guys is, most of my experience in education in strength and conditioning, powerlifting, and all that happened before the internet was popping off, as far as definitely before social media and all the other stuff. So it was through the time with the people I trained with in the gym. So I was trying to find people stronger than I was, or through college and education and books and shit like that, and networking and those things, where you guys come in at a later period of time to where you have access, to the internet and all the shit that's on the internet, to where one of the criticisms of that now is that there's too much information. There's an overabundance of information. You had to come up through this overabundance of information, right? Where I guess a benefit that I never had the overabundance of information. You had the crew of the people I was training with, Powerlifting USA, and some books here and there when I was younger that I would buy. And then as I became more intelligent, textbooks and shit like that associated with that, but not this overabundance. So in phases, I guess is kind of how I learned. Where now, how did you navigate this overabundance of information that's out there? I can sit back and personally say, well, it's pretty easy to sort the bullshit from everything else. But I never had to do that. So it's kind of a biased, fucked up statement for me to say. If I never had to live in that world, I just see what it is now. So how did you go about knowing that training needed to be phasic, or it had to be a long term, and how it would structure with everything that's out there?
So I think, when you got in, you found a crew and you have the information that they provide you, and then you seek out the things that, like you said, articles in Powerlifting USA. It's not that dissimilar for us now. Figure out the thing you want to be good at. Figure out the people that are in that space. Like, I want to drive my squat. Well, who can I learned from that will do that? This guy Brian Carroll's written a bunch of shit. Let me read that. Elite FTS is out there, and they got 1,000 articles that came out in the last month on how to drive the squat. So then you read those things. If I was interested in, I don't know, knitting, I would find somebody that's writing books on knitting, and I would read that stuff. So I think it's kind of self-channeling, in that if you want to know about a thing, you find the people that are writing about that thing, and then that narrows that way down. There are a million people out writing ebooks, putting stuff on social media about their version of strength or fitness. Their version isn't my version, so I don't see that stuff at all.
I agree 100% with that. For me, it was going and looking at guys that's competed at a high level and have been around the longest. So like Brian Carroll, Matt Winning, you listen to a lot of Louis stuff, and it kind of just sorts its way out with, you start knowing who's bullshitting. So, but I couldn't agree more with your statement there.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think part of it just has to be experiential. Try stuff if it feels right or if it seems right. And that's tough too, because if you don't have the prior experience or context, then you get sucked into something that's not legit. But even doing the wrong thing for a period of time, obviously you can learn from it. And I think that a problem I see with newer lifters or lifters who can't commit is changing programs, program hopping. That's a common thing. But even if you do the wrong thing consistently for a period of time, you can pull a couple principles out of that. And then the next time you do something, you have those same core principles and you build something else, and you kind of keep to stack them. So I think in part with the information is, if something feels right or if you're interested in it, try it, see how it goes, give it a shot. If you don't respond the way you expected, figure out why, or try something else. But I think in terms of working through the information, you guys hit it on the head. I mean, you can figure out who's bullshitting by seeing kind of like where they leave some clues. Something I like about that what you read in section in the Discord is if you read some of these books or text or authors, they'll start referencing other people, and then you read their books, and then you kind of have this collection of people, you know, your brain trust that you can go to for certain topics. I think it's important to challenge yourself to, you know, look into things that you don't understand as well. And that comes with a little humility, but I think a lot of it just needs to be experiential. And then look for those recurring names, look for those recurring principles amongst people who are respected in the industry.
I found that the one thing that you just said there was, if I was, whatever the topic was, it was mental strength or whatever it was, and it was a book that I was reading, and then they referenced another book. I'd always go look at that other book or buy that other book. And it's a big clue for a couple reasons, because sometimes when you go read that other book, it's not what they fucking said.
Yeah.
Right. So now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. You don't know how to decipher information. You're just throwing shit out to make it sound good. But then the other book actually was, you know, pretty decent, where in today's world, it's just a link click now.
Right.
Right. So now it's a little bit easier to see. You don't have to actually buy the fucking book and see. But that reminded me of many times that I would be reading through something and there'd be a reference to that. And they'd be like, oh, okay, boom, I got to go look and see what that is, right? And unfortunately, more times than not, what they were referencing wasn't what they were referencing. And it was fucked up in a way, because a lot of times that other book that you go to has got references too. And then you end up in this rabbit hole, which now the rabbit hole's faster. You know, because you can just click through and figure all the shit out in one day instead of having to go to the library, get this, and kind of dig through that whole thing. What were some of the things that you fucked up coming up? Because you said everybody makes, we all made mistakes, right? So what were the mistakes? Because I'm going to ask all you guys, like, what some of the biggest mistakes were.
For me, not auto-regulating. So we would go in, and all of us on the team, we have physical labor jobs. So when we first started, we were running conjugate, which for the first couple preps, it worked really well. And then finally, we just hit a prep where it just fucked us up. We went to the meet, and it's like, holy shit, we got worse. So then it's like looking at it, and it's like, okay, we all have very physical jobs, whether we do landscaping, carpentry, farming. We don't have your regular desk job where you're not physically active or stuff like that. So it was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be focusing on max effort days and dynamic days. We need to kind of change it to like what we do now, where off season is more RP based. So you go off of how you feel rather than, oh, I have to hit this for 3 reps for it to be a PR. It's like, well, we can't recover from it because 5-6 days a week we're beating the shit out of our bodies at work. So we can't also come in the gym and beat the shit out of our bodies in the gym too. There's no recovery. So mine would be learning to auto-regulate what we're doing so we can recover from our workload in the gym and outside of the gym.
How did you balance that auto regulation from the mental standpoint? Because sometimes you can just be being a puss.
Well, and that's part of having your teammates.
Yeah.
Because they can also try to drive you as well.
Yeah.
So that's why we try to implement, look, we need everybody's input. If somebody's working up and you see that they're not looking good, fucking say something to them.
Yeah.
Like,
but what if they're not there and it's just you, though?
Well, I can kind of tell if I'm leading up to a heavy weight and I can't mentally get into it. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just dead. Then I'll know, okay, I need to back the fuck down because I'm just not feeling this. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I was going to compete in October. Well, this year the heat has been so bad in South Georgia that every morning I go train, I don't have it. There's no pop on the bar. I don't even want to be there most of the time, but I drag my ass there for my teammates.
Yeah.
So it's like I sat down with Brian and it's like, dude, I think I just need to sit out. And he's like, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. So then this becomes a conditioning block.
Yep. pretty much and coming back from injury. So I'm still slowly loading my back. So on top of work, traveling, and taking over the SPF, along with rehabbing from an injury, maybe this isn't the best time to worry about competing.
Mm-hmm.
So just take the back seat, take that stress off of yourself, and handle what you have in front of you.
All right.
And that's what I mean by like experiential learning or sticking with something for a while. It's hard to know how to auto-regulate if you don't have a base, right? You don't know what variables to change, what to put in, what to pull out, how long or how frequently, or just what it feels like, right? And if you're training alone, you have to take some mental inventory of how you feel. And I imagine it's the same thing if you're with a crew too, but you have to be, I think, a little bit more sensitive to that arousal curve, and you got to find ways to tap into it, which is a challenge and an obstacle. But I think what you're talking about is hard to put into a book or hard to even replicate in an online format, because I don't know how you feel. You know how you feel before you get psyched up for a lift or whatever it may be. But without the process of going through that over and over and over again, I think it's a hard thing to coach or articulate to somebody how to manage those variables.
How would you take, if I'm not mistaken, I believe your master's is in leadership and change organization. So how would you take principles from that, and how have you applied that to your training?
Yeah, I think periodization being one, so maybe training into those principles. So I work in a school, I mentioned that earlier. It's already cyclical. There are already periods. We're on a semester system, right? So I can set up KPIs or performance indicators or strategic objectives or things that we want to do in chunks. And that's been really, really beneficial for me as an organization leader, but same thing with the training principles, right? Periodization. I think consistency is definitely one that's important. As well as I guess with auto regulation, what you talk about in a strategic perspective would be the ability to like pivot or respond to things that are happening. I have to do that every day at work too. So that's definitely a principle. You have to be on your feet. You have to have a strategy that's sound and hopefully science-based, but have some principles and have the ability to auto-regulate and pivot. So periodization is definitely a big thing between those two, and setting short-term and long-term goals, but leaving some slack in the plan is what I would call auto-regulation. Yeah. What can we do with this to really optimize in the moment?
Well, I would say that most lifters don't have the plan, right? So one of the things that I go through with the train your ass off thing after all the training part is what a plan is supposed to look like. What is the long-term plan? Like, what's a multi-year plan where that's had to shorten, because I would like a quadrennial, right?
Right.
But people don't grasp that. So it's like a 2-year or 1 year. It's like, where do you want to be? What's the strategic objective? Like, what is this? And then what are the indicators, the KPIs, to know if you're moving forward or not? Because to me, if they don't develop that, even if it's a recreational lifter that's a serious lifter, a serious lifter, like somebody that is actually serious about making progress, if they don't know where they want to go, as most don't, right? Or it's not designed well.
Right.
Right? I want to be huge. I want to be strong. Like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, I want to be jacked. Like, what does this mean? So it's not defined very well, first off. So they don't define it. So their objective is fucked, right? Without an objective, how are you supposed to pull any KPIs?
Right.
You just can't. And it's the one thing that when I first started the business, as soon as I could afford to pay myself, I hired the eMyth is a consulting thing. And it's a different thing. It was way different then than it is now. So I can't say, I'm not going to give a referral for that because I don't know what it is now, right? But that was the first thing that we had to do. It's like, okay, for the business, what is the primary aim? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because that's not easy. That's where kind of the live, learn, pass on came on. Like, that took a lot of thought to figure out, like, what is this thing that's that primary aim? But then where do you want to be in 4 years? And you write that out. So after I wrote it all out, we went through and we had to pull KPIs, right? So what's quantifiable? Well, sales, yeah, that's quantifiable. Staff, that's quantifiable. Customer service, back then it really wasn't. Mm-hmm. So we made a scale of 1 to 5. You know, so it went on the spreadsheet like every month, like, where is this? Was it better than last month? The same as last month? So all these KPIs were established. And so after I went through that whole process, and then I have these indicators to determine what's moving forward, what's not, because nothing always, you have a business, nothing always moves forward.
Right.
Some things move forward, some things go back. Some things that go back can just be gone, right? They may just they shouldn't be there in the first place. So just because it goes back, and this is training as well, just because certain things in your training just don't progress, well, maybe they don't need to be there. Right. If the proof of it is, if you look at the KPIs and it went up, but yet your main indicators didn't go up, it didn't help.
Right.
You know, so you pull it back out. And I wish that every lifter would take the time, even if it's just like, where do I want to be in a year? And then to lay that out. And numbers are one thing, you can kind of put them out there, but I'd like more than just squat, bench, and dead. Mm-hmm. Right? Because the world doesn't always work, you know, the way that kind of operates. And then peel back from there. But I was able to take everything I learned there, then reassess my own training. And then I was able to look at conjugate when I was doing that, like, okay, I see what's going on now. Each one of these max effort exercises are kind of KPIs, you know, but which one have the most correspondence?
Right. What makes sense?
Yeah. So then what accessory exercises help the max effort exercise? So it's like, it was peeling everything back. It's like, first determining what the objective was, then determining what are the main drivers of that objective. Every time these go up, this goes up. If I'm consulting with a strength and conditioning coach, say if it's football strength and conditioning coach, with your players, every time these things go up, what do you think carries over to the field the most? You know, I try to get it down like 3 or 5 things. Like, okay, you know, those carry over. For a powerlifter, it's easy. Squat, bench, and deadlift. You're trying to make squat, bench, and deadlift strong. So what have you noticed over all the years that every time that goes up, those lifts go up, right? There's an indicator, right? And then it was just a matter then of, it's like a pyramid. You just pyramid it out. It's like, okay, every time my close grip bench went up, my bench went up. All right, cool. What do I need to do to make my close grip bench go up? Because making the bench goes up is hard.
Yeah.
Right. But making the KPIs go up that associate with that, that's a little bit easier to navigate, because sometimes your close grip bench isn't going to go up, but you got a floor press or some other kind of KPI. And this works no matter if it's conjugate or if it's block or if it's linear. There's always main objectives, and there's always movements that carry over into the main movement. And so what are they? And most people don't know. Right? Like, if you can define those, then your whole training strategy can change. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I would say that's the same connection between training and whether it's a school or a business or any organization is, yeah, you get like mission focused, which you need to do because sometimes you get lost, right? We all kind of lose our way on that path, have a plan. And then what we would call maybe like attributes or core competencies in the business world, those things that are going to help you get to your mission. Same thing with training. If you have a long-term plan and you've been working through it, you work through adversity, you get down to that handful of things that work. Same thing in a business or an organization, whether that's your guiding principles or your values or your mission. You know, you do this shit consistently and you'll get this. Same thing with training. You do this consistently, you get this. And that, I think, introduces the opportunity to try different stuff and auto-regulate. You know, you put in a couple cycles of whatever, you know, a different exercise, a different modality that you want to try. You can measure it. And if it works, great. You see how to use it. If it doesn't, then you just keep going back to those guiding principles. But I think it's really important to work through the process, establish what that is that works for you. And it's hard, you know, with training. I think people mix up auto-regulation and jumping ship. Something goes wrong and they're going from 5-3-1 to cube or something like that, instead of working through that and getting back down to those principles. So I think that's a big connection of what's the mission, what's the purpose that's going to drive us through times that are adverse or challenging, and then identifying those core competencies. But if you started selling balloons or something every time fitness equipment retail got tough, you'd be in a whole different industry. So I think it's just, you got to do shit and you got to bear it and grow and adapt. And that's definitely a big connection between those two.
Brad, have you found anything that is that are those indicators like we're talking about for your own training?
Well,
oh, I'm sorry, it's Tom. So Brad, yeah,
Brad.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah, I looked here. No, I got it.
Dave.
Yeah, yes. Tom, Corey, Brad. So
Cody.
either one, because I'm going to ask you both.
Yeah, it's kind of just going into a gym and sticking to a main mover, a secondary mover, and just some accessory work, instead of going in and just saying, oh, I feel great today, I'm going to go balls out. So even if I feel good, maybe I'll just throw in some tempo work for an accessory. So don't get as burnt out as I'm going to throw in a couple more exercises. So I know if I stick to that, it all goes back to recovery for me. Because being out in the heat all day, sweating, and then also having to deal with customers. So you're getting phone calls, I need this, I need this. It's like we haven't been able to take on more work in 2 months this year because we can't keep up with what we have because we can't find people to work. So it's like that was one thing is now I'm mentally stressed along with physically stressed. So if I go into the gym, do a little less than I normally would, and just being there for the team, then I know I can allow myself to recover more. And then long term, once we get into fall and I can push more, I'm going to be set up for better success. Because I'm more recovered and I'm not pushing myself towards an injury again.
Well, I would call that like an active deload. You know, like an active deload, even if you just go in and you lift half the weight you normally would with half the reps, that's more than likely going to be better than not going in at all.
Right.
Right. But the tricky part is it needs to kind of like be half the weight, half the reps.
Yeah.
You know, because it goes too much, then it's a stimulus you have to recover from. Or with, God, what I was talking with those guys about yesterday off camera was how, so for a lot of people, their recovery work becomes work they need to recover from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which becomes like a whole other fucked up, type of thing, and when you're in fire, police and stuff like that, that can become an issue too, because you have to have that training too, as well.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that?
Poorly, I think would be. So this was, we always say, you've said it, I said it over and over again on the Discord, is you got to figure out where your stressors are and try to dial them back. My stressors are my professional life. I have chosen to be stressed all of the time. And as part of that, I don't get to regulate when I sleep. I work at 24 hours at a time. And the wonderful citizens of my town like to wake me up in the middle of the night. We're glad to be there, but that means that I'm going to be, if, I do max effort squat on Monday, if I worked on Sunday, we're going to have to regulate a little bit. Maybe that max effort squat is now going to be a triple, or it's going to be a 5 or something like that. But then, and this is something I learned from you, Dave, about planning stuff out. You're going to be gone this week. Figure out how to make that your deload week. So I took a rope rescue technician class earlier this year. I knew when it was going to be 6 months in advance. So I built my training around that, knowing that I'm going to be working my ass off that week, but it isn't going to be with a barbell. So that's where we're going to call that a deload. And I'm staying physically active. I'm pulling things, hauling things, carrying things, but it's not loading my spine. It's not pulling a barbell. So just having the wherewithal to write stuff down, use a Google Calendar. I carry a book with me everywhere that all my stuff goes into. So that's how you got to figure it out. And then be ready to pivot on the stuff that you can. You guys have to be at work 9 to 5 or ish, Monday through Friday. Any day of the week is just like any other day of the week to me, since I work a rotating schedule. So if we're up all night on Sunday, even though I'm supposed to squat on Monday, I'll just push to Tuesday. And then I can know that I'm sleeping in my own bed on Monday night. There isn't, I don't think, a way forward that is going to work for everyone. You got to figure out how it's going to work for you. And that's a thing that took me far longer than it should have to, if I don't squat on Monday, but I still squat on Tuesday, it doesn't matter that I didn't squat on Monday. What matters is that I squatted. And I didn't used to do that. I'd be up all night for work, and then I'd try to kill myself in the gym on Monday and suffer for it.
No, I think you just made a huge, point where years ago I would bash deloads, right? Like deloads are fucking stupid and put all this stuff out there. And I probably didn't provide enough context a lot of times when I was kind of doing that. But if you lay out, and you learn as you go through, right? You learn like when people start pushing back on you, which I do like, they push back on you and like, that's not actually what I meant. Like what I meant is exactly what he just said. If I'm looking at my whole year and my main trainings on the weekends, and it's like, okay, I have, you know, these 4 train your ass off events. I can't train on those weekends, you know, so there's an X, there's an X, there's an X, there's an X. I'm going to be out of town on this weekend for a fact. I'm going to be out of, so once I go through and I start blocking off all the shit I know I have to be out of town for, then it becomes really easy to realize, okay, right, here's a good 4-week wave. Here's the 3-week wave. I can layer this shit in there to be able to know exactly where these things fall. So sometimes it may be a 3-week wave. Sometimes it might be a 4-week. It's not going to go over 5 because I can't recover from that shit. Or it's a 3-week and a 3-week, you know, but I know because it's like, here's where this is. And sometimes it gets a little fucked. You know, sometimes it's like, okay, here's 2 weeks, then here's a week, then here's 2 weeks, then here's like, well, fuck, what am I going to do? And then you manage it and you kind of figure it out. Maybe it's a 4-week with 1 week with something in there. I don't think people do that either. Because when you really start looking at the things that you know you're not going to be able to make, if it's holidays or something like that, there is that pre-loaded deload where my criticism of the deloads is if these are supposed to happen every 4th week, but then on the 2nd week, it's fucking Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? So how's that work? You know, or you know you're going to go on vacation, but the vacation just happened to come the week after the deload. So now it's like fucking 3 weeks of deload. Like what, how's that playing out? And that's a huge thing that people miss because they don't look, going back to what we were talking about, they're not looking at this macro plan to be able to see how these things lay out. Then they stress out, right? Because they're like, oh shit. You know, I'm not going to be able to do my 88% week or whatever it's going to be because of this. But you knew that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just fucking cruise you're going on that you scheduled 6 months ago. Like, you fucking know that. There's ways, you know, you can periodize around that stuff. Same question for yourself, I think.
Well, I'll do it, and like Tom, Jacob, Joey, they'll do it as well. If they have a vacation that they want to take, they'll actually look ahead in the program and take the vacation during a deload week. Mm-hmm. So that way they're really not missing anything. They can find a local gym and go get the work in that they want if they need to. Or like Tom is even taking his sled to the beach just to do active recovery with the sled instead of not doing anything at all. Mm-hmm. So it's just pretty much because we pick our meets in advance. So after a meet, we'll look at the schedule and say, okay, well, we compete twice a year. So 6, 7, 8 months, okay, this is the meet that I want to do. So then you start counting back so we can go ahead and plan our blocks because we do 10-week blocks. We'll have, when we're done with a meet, I took this from you, is no bar on your back, no bar on your hands for at least 4 weeks. And then once we count from that, then we start throwing in our 10-week block of hypertrophy. And then, so we might need to have 2 hypertrophy blocks or power building block, hypertrophy block, and then a peaking block for the meet. So 6, 7, 8 months in advance, you know when your meet is, so you can kind of go in and schedule if you want to take a vacation or, well, I have this coming up. We're going to be out of town. It's actually on this week. And it's our 85% week. Mm-hmm. So now you have to kind of move your days around so you can come in and hit that 85% before you go on your vacation. Yeah. So that's kind of how we do ours.
2 questions that I've been asked, God, ever since I started this shit, are 2 that I can't answer, right? And you both are in it. One of them is, how do you manage all this with shift work? And how do you manage this with a hard labor job, right? So how would you answer that if that question comes to you? Like, how do you manage your training having this hard labor job?
Well, one is the training before work. So the 4 a.m. Because I know if I'm out in the heat all day and then I come in and I try to train, I'm going to shit the bed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to be dehydrated because I have not found a good way to stay hydrated when your heat index is 105, 110. And the other thing is owning the business, I can kind of dictate our hours. So we try to knock off around 4 every day before the peak heat.
Mm-hmm.
That way I can kind of have a few hours to unwind, relax, and do anything that I need to promote my recovery. Whether it's getting my fiance Amy to roll me out or taking a cold shower to kind of unwind from the heat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of in a lucky position that I can control a little bit more of my work schedule to an extent to help my training. Because if I didn't have bills, I would just worry about powerlifting.
Yeah.
I mean, but seeing as how I have all these responsibilities, work still has to be a priority. So then powerlifting kind of takes the back seat to work because the work supplements my powerlifting,
Mm-hmm.
pays for it.
Yeah.
Without working, I'm not doing shit.
Yeah. What about shift work?
So it's a similar answer, but 11 hours later than it is for him. I work out at 3 o'clock. On my off-duty days, that means if I was up the night before, I have time to come home, do dad things, get my kid to school, take a nap, which is a thing I didn't do for the longest. If you're not napping, you should be. Or we're fortunate that we have a great gym at work, and we kind of operate, I mean, we're there for 24 hours, but we kind of operate on a business schedule. So when we get there, we're doing our early morning checks, we're training, we're getting out and into the community and doing all those things. But by 3 or 3:30, we're done with the kind of out in public stuff that isn't responding to emergencies. So then at 3 o'clock, I'm training, and then I do 50% of the cooking in the firehouse. So if I train at 3, I'm done by 5, I'm got dinner on the table by 6. Or if it's not my day to cook, then I'm training by 3. And then, you know, we've got a sauna. I can get in the sauna or ice bath or whatever if I need to. We're pretty spoiled in that manner. And then my partner has got dinner on the table at 6. But it took longer than it should have to know that I used to train at 11 a.m. when I'd come home and I'd do dad stuff and then I'd go lift. And now I need that nap. So I have that built into my schedule.
Along those lines, the one thing I want to put out there is everybody still has to figure it out, right? So if you own a business, I'm going to guess you're probably not working 40 hours a week. Like if you own a business, you're working, you can't even calculate, right? So you got to figure that out too. Certain professions, they all have different stresses, and to a certain degree, your mental stress and your physical stress can be equated the same way when it comes to recovery, right? So it's the things that I would watch for if it's like this extreme heat or shift work is the mental stress then needs to really be because you already got a higher level of the physical stress just associated with the work, you know, so the mental stress needs to be tapered it needs to be more on the table as far as your consciousness than others, because you're already kind of like filling the cup up a little bit higher, so it's easier to overfill it when the physical stress, and that could be the physical stress of training too much too. I mean, some of these guys, they get eager and they're training 7 days a week, 2 hours a day and all this, so they're accumulating the same type of shit, and just like we all learned, that don't work. You know, even if you like it, it don't work. You know, let's take a bathroom break real quick, then we'll come back. I got pissed. The Swiss Symposium 2023. Yes, we are bringing this back to Columbus again. The date is October 20 and 21. Columbus, Ohio. Hilton, it's the same location it was last year. If you head over to the website, there's a big banner that links directly to Swiss. There's also a link in the description box so you can see who the presenters are as we are booking them for the symposium. The symposium's been going on for 20 years. It's, in my opinion, probably a little biased, but in my opinion, one of the best symposiums when it comes to strength and conditioning, sport medicine, therapy, physical therapy. Right now, the admission is 38% off or 48% off. Don't know. I'm not looking. I'm just kind of looking at the camera right now, but it's the early bird rate. That rate is until July 1st. So now is the best time for you to sign up. When you go to register, there's 3 different ways that you can register for the symposium. There's the general admission, which gets you into all the different lectures that you want to go to. The caveat is there's 3 or 4 lectures going on at the same time. So the second option allows you to purchase the videos of all the lectures for you to be able to watch at a later time. So that allows you and gives you access to everybody that's presenting if there's 2 people presenting at the same time that you would really like to see. The format that those are in is as I want to call out the limited edition apparel. The link is in the description. As I've spoken about before, the limited edition apparel is apparel that I basically come up with. So some of them just suck, some of them not so much. It's a weird thing. The ones that I think are going to do really well usually don't. The ones I think aren't going to do really well. Either way, they're all limited runs, so it changes, every single month. But all limited edition items are tri-blend material with, the cut that everybody wants now that's a little bit tighter on their arms so they can show off how big their fucking arms are. The limited edition items directly support the podcast. So head over, pick up your shirt today. Could be a hoodie, could be shorts. We got these ball hugger shorts right now, which I would never wear, but I was told they were super popular. But you know what? They were wrong because they're still sitting there and I probably should discount them right now. Anyhow, if you want to see the discount on the ball hugger shorts, head over to limited edition apparel, link in the description box. Okay, so we're back. I want to keep expanding on kind of the things that you guys have learned and had to mitigate throughout your training journey. The reason why I want to do that is the majority of the people who are listening to this podcast are like you guys, right? They're not the advanced lifters that I'm going to have that are talking and so forth. They're great to listen to. They got great stories and you can pick and choose from all those type of things. But a lot of the things that they do can't be applied in situations that most of the listeners are doing, right? The things that you guys are overcoming and have had to overcome does apply to what they are doing because of the work and all the other things that you have to manage with that. So outside of give more examples on the auto regulation and how you had to mitigate that through the training process. And we'll start with Tom.
I think, especially if you, like I said, you don't have that context, it's easy to get caught up in like a gimmick, right? And I think a lot of newer lifters get sucked into that too. So with me, one, I think starting out with something, a reputable start. If you're a new lifter and you're just trying to start to put things together and learn auto regulation, come into Elite FTS for resources. Starting with something like 531 is a great place to start. I'd recommend that too. And then really from there, just matching it to your outcomes. What's working, what's not working, like we talked about, and look for those key performance indicators. An example for me would be nutrition. About 3 years ago, it's actually somebody on the Discord asked this question. There was a good discussion about it. I felt like I needed to get stronger. I thought I needed to get bigger, but I was just way too fat. I just didn't like my body composition. struggled with that for a while, tried a couple different gimmicky diets, tried to basically ignored good information that I knew was out there, trying to find a shortcut, and it didn't work. In that instance, I worked with one of Justin Harris's coaches, Thomas Lackey, for about 9 months, and really just taught me about energy systems, good food lists. I'm sure Justin probably gave you the same one, establishing good habits, learning those skills. And then once I stopped working with him, I'm able to now use that knowledge and auto-regulate and take a look at my body composition or my strength or whatever it may be and set some goals. So for me, I would say trying to find a reputable place to start is important. But then from there, if you're looking to auto-regulate, continuing to pull in those resources and try something, learn, try, and then reflect on how it went. Whether that's working with a coach, whether it's joining the Discord, whether it's following a program, I think it's really important to have those guiding principles to work through. And again, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. You know.
Now, do you work with some of the kids at the high school?
Yeah. Right now, I just recently started talking to a couple kids there and getting them involved. My campus is completely online. So we're an early college. All of our students graduate from high school with a certificate or a degree. So a lot of them are really independent. We have a lot of students who maybe couldn't go to school for whatever reason, health concern, something like that. We have a lot of other students who are really involved in the community and sports and religious organizations, whatever it may be, and need that kind of flexibility in their day-to-day. So I do work with some of those kids.
Mm-hmm. Do they contact you in regards to training at all?
No, they almost keep it completely separate. Yeah. I talked to a couple of kids. Most of the younger people I've been working with, I've worked with some students who played football back in my high school in Somerset County in Pennsylvania, and then a couple people from the gym around the community, but not as many in my own school. I tend to keep those two things pretty separate,
okay.
At least in the day-to-day.
Yeah. With more mistakes that you've made that you've learned from, then also, are any of the people that are part of your group under 20?
No, right around 20.
Okay.
So 21, 22, 23.
So would you say that they're beginners at that point, or they already got a few years under their belt?
A few years belt. So not a complete beginner, but you mentioned earlier training 7 days a week. That is one thing that we did do for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have our main workouts, and then we would go in on the other 3 days and just do small exercises. Well, after shitting the bed out of meat, that's kind of one of the things that we took out. It's like, okay, we're doing too much. We're going to benefit more by sleeping in those 3 days rather than going to the gym and giving our body more to recover from. So let's just stay at the damn house. And some of them, like Tom, he was a little more thick-headed when it came to that. He was like, man, I just like going to the gym. I was like, well, do you like going to the gym, or do you like results on the platform more?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to look at.
Yeah.
So, and we still have people in the group that do too much as far as working out too much or pushing harder than they need to. And I don't think they take in the consideration of, I have to recover from this. Because it's like, you can ask them, well, how do you feel? Oh, I feel good. Well, the minor injuries that you're always fucking getting tells me that your body is not feeling as good as you think it does.
Mm-hmm.
Or you wouldn't be getting injuries left and right. So you could just back it off. But that's things that you can tell somebody repeatedly, but I think sometimes they have to learn it for themselves. So it's just, look, I've gave you the information, you're not recovering like you should. Well, I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. So you're going to have to learn it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I hate repeating myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it's like, oh, well, what do you think if I do this? Yeah, sure, try it. I mean, what's your reason? And it's like I was telling them on the way here, if you can't give me a reason of why you want to do something, you probably shouldn't do it. Because you don't even know why the fuck you want to do it. You probably just seen it and it's like, oh, well, such and such does this.
Well, that's what it was. They saw a 15-second reel.
Are you them?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And that's a common beginner thing that I would say you see something, it looks awesome, you get enthusiastic about it. A more mature lifter is going to say, okay, how can I periodize this to try it? I have my core principles, right? If you don't have that experience, you're going to be trying to do splits, squat 1,000 pounds, run a marathon all at the same time. So I think that's a lot of it too. You see something cool, or you see someone that you admire doing something cool and you want to implement that or try it. It's either A, you're not them, so it's not going to work for you, or B, you haven't built this into a system that makes sense for you to get the result that you want to get. So I think enthusiasm's good, but being deliberative about when you want to try stuff and how long you want to try it and what the purpose is going to be for whatever it is.
How long did it take you to figure that out?
Still trying to figure it out. I purchased the Thomas Kurtz book, right? The periodization book from a recommendation in the Discord, been working through that. So a long time. I think understanding that you're not going to be at maximum performance all the time and it's not linear is a tough pill to swallow, and everybody wants to think that they're the exception, but just being patient with some of those lulls and understanding how to periodize a little bit more efficiently. But yeah, it's taken me at least 15 years, but I'd like to think that I'm still learning and trying to figure out how to do it most effectively.
Some of the mistakes.
I'd say one of the big things is figuring out what you need or what you want. Like you said, you can't do all the things. I'm not going to get better at running a marathon while I'm also trying to push my deadlift. But my needs and my guys' needs aren't necessarily the same thing. If you aren't training to compete in a powerlifting meet, you probably don't have to straight bar deadlift. So, some examples are like, I've got a guy who doesn't barbell squat and he doesn't need to. We've got a belt squat. He's not loading his spine. He's not ever going to get on a platform. He doesn't need that. Another one of my guys is never going to get on a platform. He doesn't need to pull a straight bar deadlift. So he pulls with a trap bar, switching between the low handles and the high handles, because that fits the strength he thinks he needs. I want to do both. So I'm loading my spine with a barbell back squat. I'm pulling a deadlift. But you got to be honest with yourself. If I see this cool thing on the internet and I want to try it, well, I need to be clear on where I am, be clear where that thing is going to take me, or I think that thing will take me. And then after I've given it a cycle or 2 cycles, am I further along the path? If, say, like hanging band technique looks really cool, a lot of people use it. It might not be the thing that I need. So I'll put it in. I know where my lifts are now. I give that a couple of cycles. At the end, I see if any of my metrics, my KPIs have moved up. If they haven't, then maybe that's not the thing I need now. But being honest with yourself and really writing shit down are like keys that I think a lot of people miss, and it's the lowest hanging fruit. I did X for 5 on a yoke bar. 2 cycles later, 3 cycles later, whenever the yoke bar comes back in, what did I get for 5? If it went up, then I can look back at those cycles and I've taken good notes on them. Did this thing help me? If I went backwards, then whatever I did in those cycles didn't help me. But I don't know that if I don't write those things down. I know it feels like the easiest answer, but writing your stuff down and being honest with where you're at and where you're trying to get to are things that I think are missing in a lot of intermediate lifters or strength enthusiasts, whatever, especially if you're not working with a crew. If you don't have guys around you like he does that can say, well, we did this and your squat went backwards, so we're not doing that thing again because it's not helping you, or it's helping me but it didn't help you, so when it comes time to accessories, we'll fluctuate a little bit. That was a big lesson for me. It took the longest, is being honest with where I was and knowing that post meet, just because I squatted a 50-pound PR, that's not really where I am as far as my training shit goes. Like, I need to look at what that second attempt was and how it moved and base stuff off of that. Because whether it's, it's the show or it's the adrenaline or it's the summer breeze salts available at Elite FTS, like something got me up to that third attempt that is not going to be my everyday.
All the answers are simple, right? If you do it for 20 years, right? Because then you can look back in hindsight. The tricky part is, how do you take that and then impose it on somebody that's only been doing it for 5 years? right? Because there's two things that kind of go along with that. Is they're on that upswing of their journey, so they're making gains no matter what they do. You know what I'm saying? So they can be on the program that you have them on, or the program that they've been given, or the program that they laid out, and then get sidetracked. And like right now, HIIT training's like making a comeback for like the 800th fucking time, right? So a lot of people, they're just gonna fold over to that. Meanwhile, I've seen it come and go like 5 fucking times over it. So I can tell them, but if they're young enough and the start of their journey, they're going to gain like a motherfucker from doing it, right? So then the response kind of is, yeah, okay, but yeah, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger. And then it kind of gets to the point where like, okay, whatever, you just do whatever you want to fucking do, right? And then when you look back at what you did, it was exactly the same thing, right? So it becomes this really fucking hard thing to communicate, you know, what that is when they're making that progress, doing those things that are not optimal. Because at a certain age, you're going to grow and get strong no matter what you do, right? And then if you add in PEDs to that, it's even more expedited, that all of it. Meanwhile, it's all the things that you needed to get through that phase are the exact opposite of what you need to go through the next phase.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So at one point, you have to learn how to train really, really fucking hard. Then at this point, you need to learn how to back off, which is the opposite of what you had to learn to be able to get there, right? At one point, you had to, everything's backwards. It's a fucked up thing on how it all works with that. And then to watch, I can see these people go through these different phases. And the advice that I would have if anybody's a coach is something that you kind of said, at a certain point, just do whatever you want. Like, yeah, just don't expand your energy anymore, because it's not gonna, you're not going to convince them. That's what they're gonna do. Then they're gonna learn, you know, and sometimes the only way that you can learn, you know, is from the mistakes. And usually if they're young enough, they're probably not gonna get hurt either, right? Because you can fucking do about anything, you know, shift work, labor work, and still, you know, when you were 20, you could do all the shit that you're doing now, go in the gym and just fucking kill it.
But the thing is, that might work for a meet or two. And then down the road, you just completely shit the bed.
Yep.
So now, like exactly what you're saying, now you got to pivot. So you just busted your ass doing more than you probably should have to get the same gains. Well, now you're going to have to learn to back it off a little bit. And you could be dealing with injuries that you could have went around by not going as heavy as you have been.
Yeah, I think what most people do at that point is quit, right? Which is why you see a large attrition rate, you know, in powerlifting.
Yeah.
You know, so they come in and they make the quick gains, then it gets hard. And it's like, okay, this is when, to me, it's like, this is when it gets fun.
I was going to say the same thing. That's the shame of it, because there's so much in my life that I've gained from powerlifting as a North Star. You know, you deal with a little adversity and you always have this thing that, okay, well, I can at least get stronger, or I can at least get stronger at this weight, or I can bring this lift up, or whatever it may be. And in my personal life, that's been really useful to know that I can go back and just build up and build up. And sometimes I use powerlifting to be the thing that gives me that momentum.
Yeah.
But man, if you quit when it gets hard, that's the fruit of all of this, I think, is then you can reflect on what happened and make those changes and figure out what's important and what's not. And if you don't like competing, maybe you don't like competing. You know, maybe that's it for some people, but I don't think that's usually the case. I think it's dealing with that failure and the adversity. But the beauty of this thing is that there's always a path forward. You just got to keep working through it. With a younger athlete who's just doing whatever, you and Joey talked about like chocolate milk and peanut butter, right? Or peanut butter sandwiches. I think if you have a young person or even a beginner lifter who's at least interested in trying to do the right thing, even if they're fucking it up, that's a great start, because then you can kind of work with it from there. You know, the intent is there. And I think that's where, when we're talking about making mistakes, everybody has a good intention. Nobody's going to do a dumbass diet or a training plan to get stronger or fatter or whatever it might be. So I think that's really important, just to encourage trying things, figure it out, reflect. But that's a good start. If you're doing something, you're on the right path. Just keep looking for that information.
With the majority of the people that I would say, you know, place training is one of their top 4 priorities. So the target market of the company, the majority of the people that fit that don't compete, right? They train seriously for strength, but they're never going to set foot on a platform, right? So they're doing it because they've seen the attributes that carry over into daily life and all those other type of things. The adversity and the way they have to physically structure their trainings a little bit different because there isn't really a date, a peak date, which after I retired from competing, it took me a while, but I found out that that's a good thing, right? Because then as things go sideways, I don't have to worry about this date. Like the meet's on this date. I'm now 5 weeks out and shit starts to go sideways. Well, fuck it. I got to figure it out. And then I just trash the shit out of myself because of that date.
Right.
Now it's like, okay, shit goes sideways. I can just move this, back that way, which is kind of a luxury of not being competitive. But it changes the whole nature of what being competitive is. But it doesn't change the nature of the whole training process. Where the one thing I found doesn't carry over from the gym to normal life is like if I have to get something done, if I hit smelling salts really bad and get super aggressive, it doesn't help. So there are those certain things like that. But I think there becomes a disconnect with a lot of people that will listen to people talk about strength and conditioning and getting stronger and all that other stuff when everything kind of goes to this meet or that meet or that meet, because in their head they're like, I don't fucking compete. So how does this apply to what I'm going to do? And my answer to that is you probably don't need that last block, the heavy singles and shit like that, even though that's probably what they want to do,
right?
Is the heavy singles, but then do conjugate. You know what I'm saying? Find a way to kind of build it in and to kind of avoid, because if it's bodybuilding, strongman, any of the strength sports, the most unhealthy part of all of it is the last stretch.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't need that, right? If you're not competing, you don't need to do that. There's no reason to do that unless it's a mental challenge. But, so be it. Do it once. Then you did it and kind of like pivot off of all that. But some of these people end up in a crew that you're working with or something like that, and then maybe they compete, maybe they don't, or they, how do I want to go with this? So with your crew, does everybody compete in the same meet or do they compete in different meets?
We were competing in the same meets.
Okay.
That's a clusterfuck because you've got 8 lifters coming up and we're all wrapped. So now everybody's responsible for wrapping somebody. Well, if you're all in the same flight and you have the last 3 lifters of a flight, man, there's a lot of scrambling around, like who's wrapping who. Well, if I wrap you, I'm going to be too tired to fucking to squat.
Yeah.
So what we did this time was we broke it off. So half of the group will compete in October at our money meet that we throw in our hometown, and the other half will compete in December at Worlds. So it takes the stress. Whoever's not competing will handle a lifter that is competing. So then it kind of takes the stress off everything, because the last meet that we did beginning of the year, everybody's running around trying to figure out where they're supposed to be. And it's like, even if you plan like, hey, you're wrapping this person, well, it's time to start wrapping this person, and the person that's supposed to be wrapping you is nowhere to fucking be found. Well, now we have to figure something out. Somebody's got to get in and get you wrapped. And it's like, if Tom is up to lift, we have to have one of the best rappers on the team wrap him, because he's getting ready to handle 800 plus. So we don't want a fucking loose wrap. We need the tightest wrap we can. Well, if that person just squatted, well, now they can't give you everything they got. So,
but the training then becomes a clusterfuck because you got people peaking at different times.
Yeah, kind of. But how we split it off is, so on Mondays, one group is squatting off of the mono. The other group is still hitting lower, but they're doing their deadlift or their good morning.
Yeah.
Because we'll cycle those two. Deadlift one week, the other week is a good morning variation. And then both groups will bench on Wednesday, and then the groups will just swap on Friday. So the deadlift group will squat, and the squat group will deadlift or do their good mornings. So, and what's good about it is the deadlift platform is right next to the monolift. So when somebody's getting wrapped to go up for a heavy squat, everybody's coming over from deadlifts to help spot.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of do have a good rotation, and it works out good because when the one group is going to be competing in October, the other group is 8 weeks out still. So they're yet to get into 80 plus territory.
Mm-hmm. How do you do the heavy work, or both you guys? Well, you can have spotters, right? But how do you do your heavy shit if there's no spotters?
So for me, if
Dangerously.
if it's my work day, then my guys spot me. They don't necessarily love that, but too bad, they work for me. But I lift in the same place. I lift at the gym at the firehouse, whether I'm on duty or not. And you guys have these great easy spotter straps that I just hang from the power rack. So if it's a heavy squat day and there's not anybody there, I set that thing low enough that I'll meet depth, but not so low it'll kill me if I don't get the squat. Mm-hmm. Bench is a little harder because I don't have a good modular bench that I can slide in there yet. So if I know that, I usually bench on Wednesday, but if it's a heavy squat coming up and Wednesday's not my duty day, a heavy bench coming up and Wednesday's not my duty day, I'll just bench on Thursday so that I have my guys there. It's like if I pivot one day, then I have guys there to spot me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real beneficial for me. And the other guys on the department, if I need a spot for a rep, I can run in and get someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, coming into this last prep, I didn't get spotted at all. I just used the rack, set up some safety straps, which has worked pretty well for me. I think a disadvantage there is if you are a bencher who's going to take a lift off, it's going to usually change. And if you're training alone, you're probably having whoever at the meet lift you off anyway, so you can't really expect it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's totally unsafe. I've been so far so good, but yeah, just using the equipment to spot.
How deep are your J cups?
Probably 3/4 inch, maybe inch, something like that.
All right. Sometimes that it helps to have.
You mean the lip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you got to lift out over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if it's a smaller lip, then it's easier to pull the bar
Just
out.
pull it out.
Yeah. It was one of the fun. Actually, it was a good thing, but I didn't think it was going to be a good thing. People always forget this. I had like 15 years competing before I ever went to Westside, right? So I had to use like real racks and shit like that. And at the time, you couldn't go wide inside a real rack because they weren't sumo base, right? So I was either stuck here, which I wasn't good at, or I had to squat on the outside. And then the J cups were like this fucking deep, so you're setting it like 2 holes lower than what you really would want it. And you got to look like fucking half squat or like go on your tiptoes to be able to get the shit out. So then being used to that fucking mess, which was kind of always a mess. Even the powerlifting gyms, the squat stands were fucked up. Like they were super deep, stuff like that. I go to Westside and it's just a fucking bolt.
Yeah, you see it in the videos.
Fucking bolt, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And nobody ever it never rolled off. I mean, there was never a problem with it. But what I learned from that was when it's a shallow, just shallow enough with a J cup, then you can get under it more, and it's easier just to kind of like slide it out from that. So you don't have to fucking lift up and over something. Mm-hmm. Which there's still a lot of J cups today that are a little bit too deep. So not only do you got to lift up over if it's a bench, but the squat you really can't, wedge it out either. You got to fucking squat it out, and then if you got to walk out, it's not going to matter, right? So if you got to stand up, then walk out, so that won't matter. But if it's a rack and you're trying to like fake monolift it out, you can't wedge it out because the fucking cups are too deep. So usually when I hear things like that, that's all I ask first is, what is that? Because the way I used to hack it before coming to Westside is I would use a wrist wrap or something, and I would just wrap it around the J cup to bring the bar up higher in the cup. So I could just pull there's always a way. Mm-hmm. You just got to know what the problem is. I didn't really start knowing what the problem was until I started tearing pecs. Then it became harder and harder to get it out over that thing because my pec won't do that. Then I'm fucked, right? Because I can't get 185 out, but I can bench 400 at the time. Right. So this is a problem. How's this going to work? And you don't have anybody, they'll lift out. You just hope you don't die, you know, which if that's all you know, that's just what you're used to.
Right.
You know, so like that was a different type of experience there. With this weekend in your training, what are you guys going to do, and what are you looking to learn from being here?
I was sharing with these guys, I'm about 3 weeks post meet, so it's a sweet spot for me to kind of just mess around and learn a little bit. This would be like one of my deloads, I guess, even though I know I'm going to put some work in. So really just looking to use some equipment here. I'm really excited about that opportunity. This is best equipment in the world, so to be here is great. I really would like just to get around the intensity again too, you know, and understand a little bit of what that looks like, and hopefully that'll encourage me to get out to the gyms a little bit more once I get back. But yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna hit a lower day. Tomorrow's lower day. Sunday is gonna be upper day. Just gonna experiment, jump in with a couple guys, and have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the same as me. Tomorrow is a lower day. Sunday will be a upper day. And kind of just hover around, hit a little bit of everything. And kind of just work on pulling myself back because I feed off energy. So I don't need to jump into something that I have no business doing right now. And then unwind everything that me and Brian's been working for as far as the back stuff.
Yeah, can I remind you of that tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's kind of just, and I would like to learn just different perspectives from everybody. Like, what are they doing to see results for increasing a lockout or increasing a deadlift off of the floor? Stuff that we can learn in the crew Discord, but it's person to person. So you kind of get more in depth with what they're doing other than like a paragraph. So
there's some things, you know, to kind of dial in on that. There's some things that you can have in a video and somebody can point out in a video, but you don't really get it until you see somebody else do it. Right. Like, you know, the start position of a deadlift is a really good example of that.
Yep.
Like everybody can tell you, you know, you need a wedge and you need to be able to do this, but until you see somebody actually do it.
Yeah, because I'm a visual learner.
Yes.
You can fucking tell me and write it out for me, but if I see it physically and I'm there, I'm going to learn it way better.
So we talked about this before, and I think the three of us are on similar schedules as far as lowers tomorrow and then uppers on Sunday. Today would typically be my deadlift day. Having the opportunity to come out here for the retreat tomorrow, we're going to pivot that a little bit. Being a long-legged lifter, my squat looks like my deadlift. So if I squat tomorrow with you know, a giant camber bar or any of the things that you guys have out here that I haven't had the time to get to train with yet, then I think that will still move that needle forward for me on my lower. The thing I'm really trying to get is my upper is the worst. My bench is the drizzling shits. So somebody to put their hands on me, manipulate me into position. I had the great opportunity to come out here 18 months ago for Train Your Ass Off, and I didn't have any lats when I got here. I could not, didn't matter what handle I pulled, what angle I pulled, I couldn't feel my lats. I couldn't make them grow. But 15 seconds, Dave putting his mitts on me and saying, no dummy like this. And I've seen significant growth in that. And that's really helped my bench. And I'm hoping to progress that more with, you said we got 35, 40 guys coming out here. Somebody's going to be able to manipulate me into a position, and then all the things I'm going to be able to learn from. I mean, he's going to own a federation, and he brought half his crew with him. There's going to be a lot for me to learn on that.
Yeah. Are there any things that, from a programming standpoint, that you guys are struggling with?
I'd say not currently, but that means there probably is, right? Like, you know, if I say no, that just means I don't know what it is. So,
well, something I picked up on your last answer was you said that being out here, you would hope that you see something out here that's going to make you get out to the gym more, which tells me you're not getting out to the gym as frequently as that you would like.
Probably not, yeah. And I really do want to. I mean, I want that from this experience to get some hands on me and get some eyes on me for sure. But yeah, I want to get back into that mode a little bit and supplement my training with some different crews. I think one of the tough things, not to go the whole way call back, but you asked about crews forming, it's tough if you don't have a shared vision or a shared goal. And, you have multiply, you have raw, you have athletes who aren't interested in competing. So you have all these different people in your gym who might have a shared value and they're wanting to get better at something, but it may not be powerlifting. So it's been a little bit of a struggle to find people who have that shared value or that shared mission in a crew setting, but I've been pretty fortunate to find a couple people here and there who can jump in for a session. So yeah, definitely looking to do more of that. But this weekend, really want to get some hands on me and some eyes too.
I think for the large part, what people would consider a crew today is not what we would have considered a crew 15 years ago, right? Because I will hear people say that, they're part of a crew, then I kind of know how it all operates. In my head, it's like, no, you're not. Right. You're not at all. But they are. So the way that it's being defined and the way it works has probably changed, where you can go into a powerlifting gym now, say it's like this, and there's 5 monoliths or whatever it is. You could have 5 people in there, and every one of them's using a different monolift, right? That's normal now. That never would have been normal when I was around, but that's normal now, right? So if that's normal now, then how do you make that efficient in work? Right, because if it's going to happen, I mean, you can fight it all you fucking want, but if it's going to happen, then why not one person go, then everybody help them, then the next person go. You just move the people, around that instead of trying to fight it. Because I think a lot of people are trying to recreate something that they may have had in the past with people today, where the people today, they're different. Like we were different than the people that came before us, right? So it's kind of like finding this compromise to where I do think in gyms you will have people that have the shared vision and shared values. But how it's going to operate and how it's going to look is probably going to be different than what you may think that it was in the past. The same way a company is not going to run the way a company did 15 years ago, the way it runs today. It can still run efficient, have excellent, produce great results, and still have, the culture and the values that need to be associated with it, but it's different and it's fucking frustrating. Right? Because there's somebody that has to deal with that. It's fucking frustrating. Right? Especially, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head and my mind around all that. It's like, how can you say this is how can you say this is a fucking crew, when out of 52 weeks, you're here like 6, like that's not a fucking crew, So it's a weird dichotomy to try to manage, to figure out through all that, where what I tell people is, start with a number of people that you need to spot on the main thing you need to spot on, which would be a squat, right, and a bench. But if you can figure that out, if there's just one consistent fucker, then at least you're not going to kill yourself. And then build out from there, and build out almost the same as business, hire slow and fire fast. Right. It's the only way to be able to go about redeveloping that.
I don't have anything off the top of my head, which means as soon as I walk out the door, I'll think of a question.
Yeah.
But good news is, be here Saturday and Sunday. So.
For me, I'd say, and again, I'm a slow learner. I must be. It took me a long time to figure out that my leverages are not your leverages. And that's a thing that I learned from the Discord. Tom Shepard on there is like, I saw him at Swiss last year, and he had this super long presentation on like how to program for your limb lengths. And it really helped me dial in that my squat pushes my deadlift pretty well because the movement pattern is very similar with my long legs. But it's also why I fail about halfway up on my bench, is because I got these real long arms, and doing bench training directly doesn't hit my arms like it might with someone with shorter arms. They might get a lot more arm work out of a straight bench press than I do. So the thing I'm working on now is, after some suggestion in the Discord, is adding an arm day. And I hate training arms, but I haven't figured out where to put it either. So I train 4 days a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Do I put it on Tuesday? Then I'm doing arms before my max effort bench, so that doesn't work. But do I put it on Thursday? Well, I just hit chest and triceps on the day before, so now how do I? And I haven't figured it out, but that's the thing I'm working on right now. Is where
So
do
you
I-
put it after that. You put it after chest and triceps, right?
just one day after?
Yeah, because you're probably only doing, I mean, your chest is the main movement, then you might be doing one compound thing for your triceps.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the next day, it's not going to be a it's fucking arms.
Right.
You know, you're not going to be doing like heavy compound fucking close grip two boards.
Right.
You're going to be doing stupid push downs and shit like that. So I would, if anything, it may not have a whole lot of growth factor to it, but it will help with the recovery
Okay.
from that bench there and then stimulate the arms. So it's that if it was me, that's where I would put it. Still not optimal, but that's where I put it.
Right.
If there was a day later, then I would put it there. But it's fucking arms. I mean, you can stick it on fucking deadlift day. It doesn't have to be its own day.
I guess that's
You know,
true.
you're not talking a whole lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
If I can do an arm workout in fucking 10 minutes, you know, if you pick the right modality and just warm up the biceps, then do one set of fucking rest pause, you know, then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't have to take all that, especially I hate arms too. You know, so it's I kind of relate to that. Whereas I always had a hard time putting an arm day in there because it's like, what the fuck? Like I'm gonna go and warm up and do all the other stupid shit I have to do to fucking do 10 minutes of work. You know, it's just
Yeah, we throw ours at the end of our secondary or second upper workout because that's normally a lighter workout anyway. So it's like a bamboo bar or something like that. And then we're already hitting triceps on both upper days, but we'll just throw in a little something for the biceps. It could be fucking hammer curls, 3 sets of 20, something like that. Tempo, just get it done, get out. I mean, that's how we do it.
if the intent, and I'm assuming I need to know the intent of what he would suggest that for. So if the intent is strength, it could be a different answer. But if the intent is just for hypertrophy, then it doesn't take all that other time.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't care about hypertrophy. I
Yeah.
just want to drive my bench, and I don't get a ton of tricep out of like close grip. Obviously, I do, but my competition bench is almost no tricep right now. And then when I hit that transition phase from chest to anterior delt and tricep, that's where I die every time. Not every time, but like if I'm gonna fail, that's where it's gonna be. So I've been trying to push the tricep work, and you've mentioned it many times. Like, how long did it take you to realize that tricep kickbacks weren't pushing your bench? Fucking too long. So now where can I put in some more tricep, like really tricep specific work? So that's what we were talking about. I don't give a shit about curls. They're not going to make any of my lifts go up, really.
go ahead.
Dave Hoff mentioned it the last time he was on, is like, say if they're doing JM press, don't focus on loading the fucking weight on the bar. Focus on putting that movement into the tricep. So it's lighter, a little bit less to recover from, but you're actually targeting the tricep instead of muscle fucking it.
I've done some of that too. Taking movements, like a JM is one that I would usually use for like a supplemental exercise and lower reps, maybe either that or dumbbell rollbacks, move that into accessory and just change the reps and sets for that too. So similar movement, but using it, you know, differently in the meso.
Jimmy Colby said the way that he does the two board presses on the videos, he doesn't push out, he pulls it to make it go up. So the intent, you know, from the strength is where I would go first with all that kind of stuff. And then what you're talking about there, you know, how it could be laid out, because it can be strength endurance, right? So it could just be high rep tricep work, you know, 8 sets of 8, 10 sets of 8, you know, stuff like that. Just Louis used to use 100 rep band push down. So that can be one aspect there. It could be, you know, the activation part, which just could be isometrics right around that same range that you're pushing, and, you know, as you push into you're pulling apart. Those can go on all these different days too, because a sticking point like that can be activation, it can be muscular strength, and it can be timing. There's a lot of all different factors it can be. I would just assume it's all of them, right? So then on the lighter bench days, I worry more about, you know, the timing of everything, like how you're starting the movement, what you're doing as you push through that. So what's the timing that pulls into the technique, and then the activation part, like how can you create more tricep activation just for like a mind muscle connection, because somebody can tell you as you do a JM, try to work more tricep out of that. But if you don't know what the tricep feels like when you're under that load, then you don't know how to fucking do that, right? So then that's that bodybuilding might. So then there's the isometric, which is the ability to actually sustain force through that range of motion to where it is hard, right? Because it could be you just run out of gas when you get there. And that could be the strength endurance, or you run out of gas when you get there because you're not going there at a fast enough speed.
Sure. Yeah.
So your ability to strain is only for so long. So there's a lot of different factors that it can be. So it's like with anything, somebody can say, do this and it will do this, but usually the reason why it worked isn't because of what they said. It was the 5 other reasons that they didn't say that kind of plays into all that. But with shit like that, I just like to, just drop a bomb on it and just kind of hit everything and then see if it helps. Because if that doesn't help, then you can peel one of them off, right? The other way to do it is put one in, see if it helps. Put another one in, see if it helps. Put another one in, see if it's fucking going to take too long, right? That's going to take 20 weeks. You throw it all in there, then if it works, then something in there worked. You may not know what it is, but who gives a shit? Your bench went up, right? Then if it's not working, you can start to peel things out, to be able to see if it's what's helping and what's not, kind of go from there. So just different strategies for that. Any topics you guys wanted to bring up that I didn't bring up?
I'd say one thing, just you've got a big viewer base. I know a lot of guys in my line of work that are fans of this product. We had a big benefit. I think we got one of your early, it might have been the first model reverse hyper that you sold, the white one with the
I had to bolt it down.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And we have it and we love it and we use it all the time. If you figure out how to get your boss, your fire chief, your police chief, put one of those in your station, do it. And a belt squat machine of any kind to drive lower strength and growth, but deload that spine. Back injuries put more firemen on the shelf than just about anything. So those two things, if you can figure out how to get into your firehouse, buy a copy of Stu McGill's Back Mechanic and do those big 3 and don't just go through the motions, but really push those things. Or say it till I'm blue in the face, and this can be the biggest platform I have to tell as many firemen, buy those 3 things, do them so that your back's bulletproof.
I'm going to reinforce, do them right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Because too many people just sit down there and just start winging fucking arms and legs around.
Yeah.
Or then they'll say it didn't work. It's because you can make them hard.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it really fucking hard, and it can make it really easy. But so I'm going to reinforce it again. Make sure to do it right. It's not hard to find how to do them right. I know that Brian Carroll's made a video on our site for it. I believe Sam's made a video on the site. We probably have 5 fucking videos on the site for that. Not to mention the 100,000 other ones that are probably all over YouTube on the same things as well. Any other things?
I got one quick one, Dave. I just wanted to plug Special Olympics. I know a lot of lifters are looking for ways to get involved with the sport. A lot of people are dejected, not with the SPF, with maybe some other federations. It's not a good home for them. Can't say enough. You can get involved with Special Olympics, powerlifting specifically for people of this show. So rewarding. It's a really great experience. It's great for the lifters. If you love strength sports, if you love powerlifting, there's nothing better. So I would say for anybody listening, if you haven't considered that for a way to get involved, give that a thought. I think it's a really good way to give back. Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to plug? SPF.
Yeah, SPF. Hey, we'll be making changes, so it's not going to be overnight, like I said earlier, but we do plan on moving in a better direction of what we see. Now, that's subjective too. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't really want to go into detail what we have planned. We can talk about that outside if you would like, but I will tell you a couple things that really pisses me off is there are meets from the beginning of the year that are still not on open powerlifting. So it's like, well, lifters want to see their shit on open powerlifting. That's something simple we can change right off the bat. That's going to better the experience for the lifter. So there's a bunch of small stuff that we'll be changing that can have an immediate impact, we feel like.
Well, that will have a big one, especially now, right? Because, that should be up there within days.
And the social media thing's another thing because people are huge on social media now. So putting the SPF out there, and I know some other federations do this, but kind of leading off of that is highlighting lifters and not just big name lifters. I mean, everybody's competing. Just because you have fucking 2,400 pound raw total doesn't mean you're more special than somebody.
Well, the
just starting
majority of
out.
your federation or any federation is not big name lifters.
Right. So that's more so what we want to do, highlight lifters, and then start doing some other things as far as content for a federation that I haven't seen.
All right. Sounds good to me. Guys, thank you for being on the podcast. We're going to wrap this up, shut it down, and we're done.